All right, hello everyone and Merry Christmas. I know it's a little late, but still, at least I want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas before the final end of the week. All right, so for anyone of you guys who are new to this channel or who are new to watching my videos, my name is Chris and this is Christian Mommy Blog. Today we are... just put in my eye. We are actually diving right into Genesis 21, the birth of Isaac, and going on into that. Tomorrow we are going to be doing John 20, followed up by John 21 next week, and that is the end of John. I have also decided on where I was going to go after John. Originally I was thinking Mark, and then after kind of going over the first chapter of it, I finally decided to go with Romans. So after I get done with John, we're going to go dive right into Romans, and then from Romans, then I will go back into the four Gospels, and I will go with Mark right after that. So the way I kind of figure I'm going to do is I'm going to do Gospel, not Gospel, Gospel, not Gospel, until I get done with all four of the Gospels. I'm still going to stay in the New Testament though. I just know I'm doing, like I said, John, obviously, Romans, Mark, another chapter which I'm not exactly sure of. I'm half thinking Ephesians, and then probably Luke, and then so on and so on. So that's kind of how I want to go with when it comes to reading of the New Testament, at least when it comes to just the four Gospels. Old Testament, I'm just going all the way straight through it, from Genesis all the way on, with the exception of Psalms and Proverbs, because I've already kind of started going into those. I just haven't posted Psalms recently. And yeah. So, alright, so let's just go ahead and dive right into Genesis 21 and go ahead and read that. So the idea, like I said before, I get actually straight into it. I do like to remind people, for those who are new to my channel, since I'm trying to build my channel up, how I go about my process. So the way I go about going into my Bible studies is I read the chapter all the way through, and then I will go back over and read any kind of notes that are currently in the Bible, not my own notes. So little commentaries on the side, which will tell you, like a profile on Isaac, or there's one that'll say here when you get into it, it's a little question here. It says, "Why fight over a well?" And I'll read that part. The main reason why I do this is for reflections. There's a reflection here on sacrifice of Isaac for Genesis 22, and that is the sort of thing I go over and read. That's what I mainly focus on. If for some reason the chapter I'm currently reading from that day does not have any of that, then I'll go ahead and go over my own notes, and we'll dig deeper into the meaning of that chapter and what certain things are trying to tell you. At the end of every video, my Bible study videos, you will have a playlist linking to the rest of those Bible studies. So this is Genesis, so at the end of this video there will be a link to the playlist for the rest of the Genesis videos that I've already done. So Genesis 1 through 20. And you guys can go take a look at that and go catch up and read those if you guys want to. Or you guys can go to my channel and go take a look at my John studies. Alright, so enough of that already. Let's go ahead and dive right into this again and start with Genesis 21, the birth of Isaac. Alright, so it says, "The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. Then Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him, and Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? yet I have borne him a son in his old age. And then this goes into God protects Hagar and Ishmael. If you don't know who Ishmael is or who Hagar is, go ahead and check out my previous studies because they're mentioned in those ones. Actually, I think you mentioned in. Yep. Okay, so go take a look at Genesis 16. That is where Hagar and Ishmael come into. Alright, continue on. It says, and the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, laughing. So she said to Abraham, cast out the slave woman with her son, for the son of the slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on account of his son. But God said to Abraham, be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you, for through Isaac shall your offspring be named. And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the child under one of the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite him a good way off, about the distance of a bowshot. For she said, let me not look on the death of the child. And as she sat opposite him, she lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God came to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Up, lift up the boy, and hold him fast with the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin with water, and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy, and he grew up. He lived in the wilderness, and became an expert with the bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. Now, this part, I'm going to tell you again. In my previous studies, we had a person named Abimelech, and I just called him Abby. So I'm going to continue doing that, but just keep calling him Abby. But just keep in mind his name is Abimelech, and I'm probably saying it wrong, which is probably why I'm just still going to call him Abby. Okay. It says, at this time, Abi and Pekol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, or with my descendants, or with my prosperity. But as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me, and with the land where you have sovereign. And Abraham said, I will swear. When Abraham reproved Abi about a well of water that Abi's servants had seized, Abi said, I do not know who has done this thing. You do not tell me, and I have not heard of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abi, and the two men made a covenant. Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock apart, and Abi said to Abraham, what is the meaning of the 7 ewe lambs you have set apart? He said, these 7 ewe lambs you will take from my hand, that this may be a witness for me that I dug this well. Therefore, that place was called Beersheba, because there both of them swore an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech, Abi, and Pekol, the commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarsky tree in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sovereigned many days in the land of the Philistines. And there we go. That is chapter 21. Now we do not have a reflection, okay? So I don't have to worry about that part. Now, as we get in closer to the profiles and the actual question, like the why fight over well kind of thing. I will go into reading that. Now, profile. Let me just go ahead and read that real quick. It's on Isaac, the son. Okay, I just gotta kind of pull this back a little bit. So it says, God had promised Abraham that the world would be blessed through his descendants. When Isaac was born to Abraham and Sarah, it was the initial fulfillment of that promise. At God's command, Isaac was almost sacrificed by his father, which we find out in the next chapter. But his life was spared when God provided a ram to be sacrificed in his place. This prefigured the sacrifice of God's own son in the place of all who would believe in him. Isaac settled in Gerar, a Philistine city, where he became prosperous. He married Rebekah, who bore him 2 sons, Jacob and Esau. Although Esau was his favorite son, Isaac was tricked by Jacob into giving him the blessing intended for his older brother. Okay, we will get into the sacrifice of Isaac in chapter 22, the next chapter, so next week. And then, if I remember correctly, chapter 24 goes into the relationship between Isaac and Rebekah. And then 25, the second half of it, is the birth of Esau and Jacob. And it continues going on with that point from there on. So this whole entire information is put into the profile. We will find out more about it as we continue going on into Genesis. Now, where it was mentioning how the prefigure of Jesus and everything else, that I will be covering closer to the end of this book when we get done with Isaac's life. Just like in okay, so I haven't got to it. So in chapter 22, there is a reflection between Jesus' life and Isaac's life that I kind of wanted to mirror. So I will be covering that in a kind of like a book title, a book topic. So near the end of Genesis, I will be doing different topics and covering them as a whole and pulling them out all through Genesis. And Jesus and Isaac's kind of life mirroring is going to be one of those topics. Okay, so it'll make more sense as we get closer and we start looking at more of Isaac's life. Right now, Isaac was just born, so we don't really get to see exactly what that kind of relationship is showing yet. Alright, so let's go ahead and just get into dive into the actual chapter now, because there is no reflection, and then the next part of information doesn't come until we get to Abby and the well. Alright, so we have the birth of Isaac. Now, Isaac was, the name Isaac means he laughs. Now, if you have not previously seen my other chapters or read the other verses or the other chapters of Genesis, in Genesis 17 through 19, and then in 18, 12 through 15, both of his parents actually laughed at the fact that Sarah was going to actually bear him a child, an actual child of her own. Okay, which is where the name Isaac comes from. Isaac means he laughs, which was meant to be a rebuke of the laughter. Because his dad laughed at the fact that Sarah's going to give birth to a kid. Sarah laughed at the idea of having a kid of her own because of how old they were. Sarah was in the 90s when she gave birth to a kid. Abraham was at least 100 years old when Isaac was born. Okay. You see, he says, Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him, and at that point Sarah was like I think maybe 5 years younger than him. So she was in her 90s when Isaac was born. Okay, so the Lord visited Sarah as he had promised, and he made it to where she can get pregnant. And within that time frame, she conceived and bore Isaac. Now, it took 25 years for him to actually fulfill his promise, but he still did. So, in one of the previous chapters, he had mentioned, hey, in a year's time I will come back and she will bear a kid and it'll be your own. Okay? So he kept that promise. It just took 25 years from the very first moment that, very first moment of that, say, hey, you're gonna have a kid, up until that point. Okay? And then Abraham circumcised his son when he was 8 days old, which is another fulfillment on his end that he had promised in order with the covenant that he had with God. So one of the promises that he made that he was supposed to uphold was making sure every single male was circumcised at least 8 days prior to their birth. And this is proving that he is doing that. So he got his son circumcised, and he is upholding that covenant that he made with God. Okay, so Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears me will laugh over me. She said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? And you can hear the amazement in her voice right here. Yet I have borne him in his own age. So again, one second. So right here is where the first kind of sign, I guess, if you want to call it, of the connection between Isaac and Jesus, okay? How his kind of life mirrors Jesus' life in a sense, okay? Isaac's birth was an entire miracle, okay? Physically, if you go off like the whole entire DNA of people, the fact that they were so old, his parents were so old, he should not have been able, they should not have been able to have a kid at that point. But because God had intervened and God had actually played a major role in this, they were able to. So Isaac's birth was a miracle from the very get-go. Okay, it was not planned. It was not even technically possible. Just like Mary's birth. Mary's birth was, granted, it's not the exact same thing because she was an actual virgin when she got pregnant. But the fact is that her birth to Jesus was a miracle. So that is kind of one first step in the fact that Jesus' life kind of mirrors Isaac's. It's a sort of reflection. Okay, like I said, when it comes closer to the end of the chapter, we get done with Isaac's life. I'll make connections more. Okay, so then we go into the actual Hagar and Ishmael. Like I said, if you have not read about Hagar and Ishmael, go ahead and go read chapter 16 because that is where that all takes place, where Hagar gets pregnant by Abraham and has his kid because Sarah thought she could not have a kid, and she wanted to use Hagar as a sort of a surrogate mother kind of sort of thing. Okay, so at this point Isaac is being weaned, and that's about 3 years old. Okay, now Ishmael is roughly, when I say roughly, very, very, really loose. Excuse me, I got hiccups. Okay, so Ishmael is roughly 13 years old, maybe a little younger. Okay, so Isaac is being weaned, and Abraham threw a great feast because he's being weaned, and Sarah saw the son of Hagar, Ishmael, laughing or scoffing at her son Isaac.
Look.
Go sit down, please.
I found my book.
I know. Go sit down, please. Close the door.
Okay.
Children. He's been so excited about playing with his dinosaur book since he got it for Christmas. So yes. So she saw that Ishmael was either laughing or scoffing at her son. And she got upset about it. Now, we already knew from the very get-go the fact, he said, if you've been going from the very beginning of this, we already know that there's going to be a little bit of jealousy between the two of them. There's going to be conflict between the two of them because they're both have kids with Abraham, even though Sarah's the one who's married to him. Okay, and then just by this fact alone, okay, if you're a parent, you're going to get upset that another kid is actually messing with your kid, basically. Okay, that's basically what Ishmael is doing. He is messing with Isaac. Okay, he's making fun of him, he's scoffing at him, he's laughing at him. Any parent would be upset about that. Okay, I certainly would. Okay, if someone was laughing at my kid, I'd be laughing in a very disrespectful way, which is exactly what he's doing right here. I would be upset about it too. Okay, so at this point, she's upset. She's jealous. She is having a real big issue with Hagar, and she says to Abraham, "Cast out the slave woman with her son, for the son of the slave woman will not be an heir with my son Isaac." And she, at this point, she just doesn't want it there anymore. Okay, I can't blame her. Really, I can't. And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on the account of his son. Now, I can't tell if he's talking about Ishmael or Isaac, okay, because both of them are his sons. Okay, now if he's talking about Ishmael, then maybe the reason why he's finding it so displeasing is because Ishmael is, regardless of who the mother is, Ishmael is still his son. Okay? Now, at this point, when I looked it up, and the reason why it was kind of so displeasing, there were two possibilities. One, because he is Ishmael is Abraham's son. The other possibility is because Abraham was wanting to keep Ishmael around for the sake of the fact of having a backup child in case that something did happen to Isaac, which that's kind of ironic enough because you're getting the sacrifice of him in chapter 22. Okay, either way, God had then told him, say, hey, do not do not be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do what she says. For through Isaac shall your offspring be named. Okay. At this point, he's literally telling him, hey, do what your wife is telling you to do, because for one, I don't want you to have a backup plan, and two, Isaac is going to be where your offspring are named after. But then he goes one little step further to give him a little bit of extra comfort, and tells him, I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring. So he didn't have to. Okay, he was only going to make he was only going to continue his name through Isaac, but probably because of how he was seen very upset, or the fact of having to cast out his son, God made the additional promise saying, hey, I will create a nation of Ishmael because he is still your son. He's still your offspring. And in not directly, but in that itself, he's basically saying, hey, send this woman off with her son to me. I will look after him. He will be safe. He will create a great nation. You don't have to worry. That is sort of God's kind of way of just kind of giving him a little bit of reassurance that he has everything planned out, that he's not going to send this kid off to death. He is going to be taken care of. He's going to be in the hands of God, and God is going to take care of him throughout his life, and he's going to make something of him. Okay. So Abraham rose early in the morning, took bread and a skin of water, and gave to Hagar, and set it off with the child. And then he set them off loose into the wilderness of Beersheba. Okay. And it says, and when the water with the skin was gone, and they had no more food left, Hagar decided to put her son underneath a bush, and then she sat far enough away from him so she did not have to watch him die, because she didn't have any water, she didn't even want to provide for him, and what mother really wants to watch their kid die? Okay, but as she did, she lifted her voice and she wept, and at that point, God heard the voice of the boy. Not her, but the boy. Okay, and he says that twice. It says God heard the voice of the boy. God has heard the voice of the boy. And he's basically saying, lift up the boy and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Now he's saying the exact same thing that he told Abraham to Hagar. And once again, basically making a promise to Hagar, the mother of Ishmael, that he's going to be okay. He's not going to die. God has him in his hands. He's going to provide for him, and he's going to make a great nation out of him. Okay. Now, reason why he did that. Okay, so he heard the voice and promised he's not going to rise against him. For the Arabic people will come from him. That is where the great nation comes from. The Arabic people. Okay, so he opened her eyes, and a well of water was seen. Now, whether or not he actually provided a new well, or if she, for some reason, she just couldn't see it, doesn't really distinguish between that. Either way, there is a well of water. She was able to provide for him and actually give him water. Okay, now the boy grew up and he lived in the wilderness. He became an expert with a bow, which is another reason why it said that she sat a good ways off from about the distance of a bow shot. Okay, because he comes an expert with the bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran. His mother took a wife from him from Egypt, and he continues on and goes into making a great agent of the Arabics. Now we get into the treaty with Abi. Now the first thing I want to point out is why fight over a well? Now at this point in time, wells were of great importance in the hot, dry climate of Israel. Lack of water was a constant threat. Both military generals and civilian travelers would often plan their routes according to the location of the wells, which is another reason why, Abi and Abraham got into such a little tiff over the wall in here. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is Abimelech is not a name. Okay, it is a title. Okay, it is a title of a ruler among the Canaanites. Canaanites. I cannot say that right. Canaanites. Not a specific name. So it's probably not referring to the same Abi as it was in Genesis 20, although it might be. I don't 100% know for sure. I just know that Abimelech is a title. Okay, so whether or not it's the same person, completely irrelevant. The point is, it's a title. Okay, so Abi and Pekol, the commander of the army, are basically wanting to keep Abraham in their corner, basically, because Abraham is such a powerful, rich guy with a lot of integrity and blessings from God or of God, and he wants to keep Abraham in his corner and with his descendants and his prosperity, as he has dealt kindly with him. So he doesn't want to make an enemy of Abraham, basically, is what I'm trying to say. He wants to keep him as a ally for generations and centuries to come. And that is why he's wanting to make a covenant with him, saying, hey, we're going to make a deal saying we're not going to fight one another. Even after I die, my descendants, my prosperities, we won't be enemies. We will continue being allies for centuries to come. And at that point, Abraham says, I will swear. And at this point, this is what I'm talking about the well. He says he basically rebuked Abi about a well of water that Abi's servants had seized. And it was a well that Abraham had dug himself, as it pointed out further into verse 30. Abby didn't know about it until didn't hear it until that day. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abby, and then they made a covenant based off of what he said in the very first. How about they don't want to be enemies? Then Abraham set apart 7 ewe lambs from the rest of the flock, and he used those 7 ewe lambs to give them to Abby as a form of a kind of like a peace treaty, and as a sign saying, hey, he dug this well and this well is his. Okay. And at first Abby did not understand what he was trying to do until Abraham actually explained it. Okay. Now those ewe lambs they're offered as a favor and a compensation for the loss of the well, which ewe lambs are pretty good too. Okay, just saying. Alright, and I want to point out Beersheba means watering place. Okay, it means watering place, or it means well of the oath. Okay, there's 2 different terms for it. Watering place, well of the oath, which is exactly what happened. They're making a covenant here, or an oath. So, perfect name for that, Beersheba. So the place is called Beersheba because both of them swore an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba, and then Abby and Phicol, the commander of the army, they went about their way to the Philistines, and Abraham planted a Tamarski tree. Now, a Tamarski tree takes a long time to plant. Long time to grow. Okay, and at that point he called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God, and Abraham sovereigned, or temporary stayed, many days in the land of Philistines. Okay, and I think that's it. So yeah, I thought there was a little more I had to add on, but apparently not. Everything else, all the other notes I currently have are for chapter 22, which chapter 22 does have a reflection, so keep that in mind for when you come back next week. Oh yes, there was one thing I wanted to point out. Okay, I knew I forgot. I was at the end here, but no. In Galatians 4:22-29, there is a example of Hagar and Sarah that you probably might want to reference too. Is actually reference how their conflict with one another. Really good example to go check out. And now I think that really is it. Yep, that's for 22. Alright, so that is all I have for 21. Next week will be 22, and we'll continue on with John tomorrow. So, with any luck. Yeah. Anyways. Alright, so I'm going to end this video. I'm going to let you guys go. I hope you guys really had a good Christmas. I hope you guys actually enjoyed it with the holidays and your families and friends, and actually got to spend a good dinner together. And by the end of the year, I can't say this week because unfortunately I don't have a lot of time between now and this week. Especially has a lot of information to compile. Anyways, so before the end of the year, I want to do a video involving the true meaning of Christmas and how it's a topic. So what Christian means in Christianity, because for many years I have done Christmas as a Norse pagan. This is probably like my first real Christmas as a Christian. I know last year I did become a Christian before Christmas hit last year, but I didn't really get to celebrate it much as a Christian because I was still really, really, really new. Like, I just turned Christian that year, or that month. So this year is my first time of actually really spending it as a Christian. And even still, I don't fully know how Christmas and Christianity tie together or how it ties in with the birth of Jesus. So I wanted to do a research video of all of that and how it ties in together, because like I said, as far as I know, it is a pagan holiday. That's how it's always been celebrated. So I'm going to try and do a video before the end of the year of how Christians celebrate Christmas and how it really means as pertaining to this belief, this holiday, along with what the candy cane means, how the birth of Jesus ties into it, etc., etc. So that is my major topic that I'm going to try and get done before the end of the year. I know if you've seen my previous videos, I know I mentioned how there's a bunch of videos I wanted to get done before the end of the year, and I have not really posted many of the top videos. It's been crazy. Okay, holidays have always been crazy. They've always been hectic, and I'm trying to balance a new job with recording regularly, and I'm trying to balance my kids' stuff in the process. I will, however, be doing a parent video this week. So, topic video before the end of the year, and as I said, I will be doing a parent video this week, Friday. So, prepare for that one. Alright, guys. I'm going to let you guys go. You guys have a great weekend, and Happy New Year's if I don't see you guys before then. Alright, bye guys.